Baking for me is mostly like a stress reliever. Like if I don't bake something once a week, I start to go crazy. Like it's really nice to break up homework and studying. It's like, oh no, I have to go do something with bread, and then you get that nice yeast aroma, and it's just, it feels like you have something with a lot more of a instant like benefit. Like when I'm studying, I'm like, this is for my future. I'm doing something that someday will help me. But when you bake bread, it's like in 4 hours, I'm gonna have a delicious loaf of bread, and that's great, you know. I'm Henry Spaulding. I go to UM from California. We're making some challah. It's a nice traditional Jewish bread, braided, enriched, fancy. We're gonna put some poppy seeds on it because that's great. If you want to be extra about it and make the ch, you want to go challah, but it's not pronounced challah, if that's what you're wondering. It is ha or ch. It's a pretty standard bread besides the shaping, It's kind of bare bones until you have to braid it, because you're not cool unless you do at least a 4-strand, maybe a 6-strand, maybe a 12-strand. Start off with that, you bloom your yeast. In this one we add some sugar to it to help it get started, because yeast eats the sugar and produces CO2 and fluffs up the bread, science. It's just so tasty. The fun thing about challah is there's a lot of eggs, and sometimes enriched with butter or honey or something to make it just fun to eat on its own. I think that a lot of time people aren't like, I'm just gonna have a slice of bread, but like when I make challah, I'm like, I'm just gonna take a slice of challah, I'm not gonna toast it, I'm just gonna eat it. It's also far and away the best bread you could ever use for French toast. There's just a lot of waiting, for lack of a better word. You mix your dry, you mix your wet, you knead it a little bit, and then you just let it sit around for a while, which is the easiest and the hardest part. Most people are like, I'm gonna be done because I want bread, and then it turns out it's a little brick of dense flour because they didn't want to wait an extra hour. It's worth it. There's just a lot of waiting. You segment your dough into however many pieces you're going to use, and you follow some kind of template where you number your dough, your strands, like 1 through 4, and then it goes 4 over 3, and then 1 over 2, and then you kind of go through and repeat that process. It's not so hard, but you'll do it like 1 strand over, and you'll be like, this looks wrong. And you do 2 more, and you go, oh, I'm doing it. And you're like, then you get it's all exciting, and then yeah, so you could just do a simple 3-stranded braid, but then you wouldn't be cool. Everything is fun to bake, but there's something special about bread because it's one of those things that people are like, oh, I've never baked bread. Like I'll make cookies, I'll make cupcakes, whatever, but bread is that one that everyone's like, I'm not gonna make that, I could just buy it. But I think it's the most benefiting of homemade. I don't know, there's just something special about it. Like everything's better homemade. Most other things don't require putting in so much waiting time. You're like, I'm gonna mix these cookies and bake them. Or I'm gonna mix this cake and bake it. With bread, it's like, I'm gonna mix this, and then I'm gonna let it sit, and then I'm gonna knead it a little more, and then I'm gonna do a cold ferment overnight. And you have this like 72-hour process sometimes that results you with 1 little loaf of bread. But all the stuff you put into it, how much time it took, and it's just that much more delicious because of all the effort you used. Well, you know what you're putting into it, even on bread, you're like, what is glucohypogenosarcarcinate? I don't know what this is, and it's like, it just makes the bread smell nice or something, so you know exactly what you're putting in. You can choose to buy organic flour, you can choose to, and you can just do so much stuff with it. My friend's mom told me to stop going to college and to bake bread out of a food truck because she thinks that would be a better idea, and who's to say she's wrong?
Yeah, no, it might.